Henry and Harry were no ordinary men. They were legends in the Navy SEALs, known as the Ghost Twins for their ability to complete impossible missions and vanish without a trace. But their journey to becoming the most decorated Navy SEALs in the country was far from easy. Their story began years ago when they were young recruits, stepping into a world of brutal discipline and unrelenting challenges. The Navy SEAL training was designed to break even the strongest souls, but Henry and Harry weren't just strong, they were unyielding. Before we dive into this thrilling and emotional story, make sure to hit that subscribe button to join our amazing community. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll never miss a moment of the action, and smash that like button if you're ready for an unforgettable ride. Now sit back, relax, and let's dive into the story. The twins endured weeks of grueling underwater drills, spending hours submerged in freezing water while instructors barked at them to quit. Their lungs screamed for air, and their muscles ached, but they refused to give up. During Hell Week, when recruits were pushed to the brink of physical and mental collapse, Henry and Harry found strength in each other. "We survived together, or not at all," they whispered to one another as they crawled through mud, carried logs on their shoulders, and ran endless miles with no sleep. Their bond was their secret weapon. When one of them faltered, the other stepped in, pushing them forward. In one unforgettable mission simulation, the twins were tasked with carrying an injured teammate across a scorching desert while being hunted by instructors pretending to be enemy forces. With no water left and the sun beating down on them, Henry wanted to drop the mission and rest. But Harry wouldn't allow it. "We're not failing today." "Not now," he said, lifting the teammate onto his back and continuing. They finished the task together, earning the respect of their peers and instructors. Their real missions were no less dangerous. Henry and Harry carried out operations in hostile territories, rescuing hostages, dismantling enemy strongholds, and surviving ambushes that would have killed anyone else. They became legends not because of their strength alone, but because of their loyalty to their team and to each other. But their success came at a cost. Henry and Harry's missions drew the attention of powerful enemies, including criminal networks and corrupt officials. One of those enemies would later become the gang terrorizing their younger sister, Daniela, a sister they had never met, but would do anything to protect. Daniela was a world away from her brother's life of danger and discipline. At 20, she lived in the heart of a tough, noisy city. The streets were always alive, full of people rushing past each other, but they could be cruel too. Daniela worked long hours at a small diner, where she spent her breaks jotting down song lyrics and dreaming of a future where her music could make life better, for herself and the people around her. Raised by her loving but secretive single mom, Daniela didn't know much about her family. Her mom rarely talked about the past, and whenever Daniela asked about her father, she'd get the same response: "Some things are better left alone." She had no idea she had two older brothers. One evening, after a long shift, Daniela walked home with a coffee in her hand, humming a new tune. She turned a corner and accidentally bumped into a group of men. The coffee spilled on one of them, a tall, tattooed man with cold eyes. His friends, all wearing matching jackets, turned to look at her with glares that sent chills down her spine. The man she spilled coffee on stepped forward, his face twisted in anger. "What do you think you're doing?" he growled. Daniela stammered, "I'm so sorry, it was an accident." But his leader, a sharp-looking man named Vic, smiled cruelly and said, "You've just made the worst mistake of your life." Daniela managed to walk away, her heart racing, but the fear stayed with her. Over the next few days, strange things started happening. She noticed people watching her from across the street, shadows moving outside her window at night, and an ominous note left on her doorstep that read, "Stay out of our way." Things escalated quickly. Vic's gang began vandalizing her apartment, breaking windows and scrawling hateful messages on the walls. Daniela started to feel trapped in her own neighborhood, afraid to leave her home, but knowing she couldn't avoid the danger forever. One night, as she walked home through the dark streets, Daniela heard footsteps behind her. She quickened her pace, but the footsteps grew louder. Turning a corner, she found herself face to face with Vic and his gang. Well, Vic sneered. "Didn't think we'd forget about you, did you?" The gang surrounded her, their faces filled with malice. Daniela's heart pounded. She was outnumbered, and there was no way to escape. But before Vic could move closer, two masked men appeared out of the shadows. They moved with lightning speed, taking down the gang one by one with an efficiency Daniela had never seen before. Every punch, every movement was calculated, almost like a dance. The gang scattered, their leader shouting, "Who are these guys?" Daniela stood frozen in shock as the two masked men turned to her for a brief moment. They didn't say a word. Then, like ghosts, they'd vanished into the night, leaving her with more questions than answers. Who were they? And why did they seem so familiar? Daniela had no idea, but this was only the beginning of her journey into a world far more dangerous and connected than she could have ever imagined. Daniela couldn't sleep that night. The image of the two masked men saving her played over and over in her mind. Who were they? And why did they seem so familiar? She felt a mix of fear and curiosity that wouldn't let her rest. Early the next morning, still shaken but determined, Daniela confronted her mother. "Mom, I need answers," she said firmly. "Who were those men? Why is this gang targeting me?" Her mother froze, her face suddenly pale. She hesitated, then sighed deeply, sitting down at the kitchen table. Daniela could see her hands trembling slightly. "You weren't supposed to know," her mother whispered. "I wanted to protect you." "Protect me from what? What are you hiding?" Daniela demanded, her voice shaking with frustration. Her mother took a long breath and finally said the words Daniela never expected to hear. "You have two older brothers, Daniela. Twins, Henry and Harry." Daniela's jaw dropped. "What? I have brothers?" Her mother nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "They left years ago when you were still a baby. They joined the Navy, following in your father's footsteps." "My father?" Daniela asked, her heart pounding. Her mother rarely talked about him. "He was a Navy officer," her mom explained. "A brave man, but he died on a classified mission when you were just a baby. Henry and Harry couldn't let it go. They wanted to honor his legacy and find out the truth about his death. They became Navy SEALs, the best of the best." Daniela stared at her mother in shock. She felt like her entire world had been flipped upside down. She couldn't believe her mom had kept this from her. "Why didn't you tell me? I had a right to know." "I didn't want you to live in fear," her mom said softly. "Your brothers knew their missions would bring danger to the family. They thought it was safer if you didn't know about them." Daniela's anger mixed with sadness. She felt betrayed but also desperate for more answers. Were Henry and Harry the masked men who saved her? If they were, why had they stayed away for so long? Make sure to hit that subscribe button to join our amazing community. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Don't forget to click the notification bell and smash the like button. Before Daniela could process everything, things took a darker turn. The gang didn't give up. They began harassing Daniela at her workplace, vandalizing the diner where she worked. They smashed windows, spray-painted threats on the walls, and made sure Daniela knew she was being watched. Vic and his gang weren't just a group of thugs. They were part of something bigger. Daniela learned from whispers around the neighborhood that the gang was tied to a dangerous criminal organization. This group had a vendetta against her family, and now they were taking it out on her. "You've got nowhere to hide, girl," Vic sneered one night when Daniela spotted him outside the diner. His words sent chills down her spine. Daniela knew she couldn't keep running. She had to find her brothers. While searching through her mother's old belongings, Daniela stumbled across a dusty box hidden in the closet. Inside, she found something that took her breath away. An old photo of two young men in Navy uniforms. They looked almost identical, both wearing confident smiles and holding medals. On the back of the photo was an inscription, "To the bravest, Henry and Harry." Daniela stared at the photo, her hands trembling. It felt surreal to see their faces for the first time. The photo filled her with a strange mixture of hope and determination. If her brothers were alive, she had to find them. Meanwhile, miles away, Henry and Harry were tracking the gang's activities from the shadows. They had been watching Daniela from a distance for years, ensuring she was safe. But when they discovered Vic's gang had targeted her, they knew it was time to step out of hiding. "We can't stay in the shadows anymore," Henry said, his voice heavy with concern. Harry nodded. "If they're coming for Daniela, we need to protect her, no matter the cost." The brothers were no strangers to danger. They had faced life-or-death situations countless times, but this mission felt different. It was personal. For years, they had stayed away, thinking it was the best way to keep their sister safe. Henry and Harry prepared to return to the city, knowing that once they revealed themselves to Daniela, their lives, and hers, would change forever. They didn't just need to protect her. They needed to uncover the truth about their family's past and finally end the threat that had haunted them for years. Daniela, unknowingly, was about to be pulled into a world of danger, secrets, and a family bond stronger than she could have ever imagined. Daniela's life spiraled further into chaos when the gang ambushed her again, this time late at night near the diner. Their taunts echoed in the dark alley as they surrounded her, and Daniela felt the walls closing in. Just when she thought there was no escape, the masked men appeared once more, moving like shadows and taking down the gang with precision and strength. But this time, Daniela had had enough. As the masked men turned to leave, she shouted, "Wait! Who are you?" Her voice trembled, but she stood her ground. One of the men hesitated, then slowly removed his mask. Daniela gasped. His face, his sharp features, his dark eyes, looked so much like hers. "We're your brothers," he said simply. "I'm Henry, and this is Harry." For a moment, Daniela couldn't speak. Her mind raced, piecing together everything her mother had told her. The brothers she had never known were standing right in front of her, and they had been saving her life all along. "Why didn't you tell me?" Daniela finally asked, her voice filled with hurt. "Why did you stay away for so long?" Henry's expression softened, and Harry stepped forward. "It wasn't safe," Harry explained. "Our missions made us targets. We thought staying away would protect you. But when we heard about Vic's gang targeting you, we knew we couldn't stay in the shadows anymore." Daniela's emotions swung between anger and gratitude. "So, you've been watching me this whole time?" Henry nodded. "We've been keeping tabs on you from a distance. But the gang, they're more dangerous than you realize. We couldn't let them hurt you." Daniela felt a wave of emotions crash over her. Relief that she wasn't alone, frustration at being kept in the dark, and a deep yearning to understand why her life had become so dangerous. As the twins explained, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together. Vic's gang wasn't just a random group of criminals. They were part of a larger, more dangerous network tied to corrupt military officials and international crime. The network, Henry revealed, was directly connected to their father's mysterious death. "Our dad uncovered something big," Henry said. "He found evidence of corruption in the military, people working with criminals to profit from illegal operations. They killed him to keep him quiet. Vic's gang is just one piece of the puzzle, but they've been hunting our family ever since." That's when Daniela learned the most shocking part. The reason the gang was targeting her wasn't just revenge. It was because of something she unknowingly possessed. "Daniela," Harry said, his voice serious, "our dad left behind a journal. It's in your apartment. We think it has the evidence he uncovered. Evidence that could bring this entire network down." Daniela's heart raced. Her father's journal. She had seen an old notebook among her mom's belongings, but never thought much of it. "You're not just a target," Henry said. "You're the key to exposing them." The time for running was over. Henry, Harry, and Daniela knew they had to take the fight to Vic and his gang before the danger grew even worse. Together, they came up with a plan to lure the gang into an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city. Daniela, though scared, volunteered to be the bait. "I can do this," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Her brothers exchanged a look of hesitation, but nodded, knowing there was no other way. Henry and Harry used their Navy SEAL training to prepare the warehouse. They set traps, blocked exits, and mapped out every angle of attack. The night before the confrontation, they sat with Daniela, teaching her basic self-defense moves and how to stay calm under pressure. "You've got this," Harry told her. "We'll be right there." When Vic and his gang arrived, Daniela stood in the center of the warehouse, appearing alone and defenseless. Vic sneered as he and his men closed in. "I told you we'd find you," he taunted, his voice echoing off the walls. But before they could reach her, Henry and Harry launched their attack. The twins moved like shadows, taking down gang members with swift, precise strikes. The traps they had set. A collapsing shelf here, a tripping wire there, threw the gang into chaos. The fight was brutal and chaotic. The gang outnumbered them by far, but Henry and Harry's tactical skills gave them the upper hand. Daniela stayed hidden behind a stack of crates, watching in awe as her brothers fought with the kind of skill she had only seen in movies. In the heat of the battle, Daniela spotted a gang member sneaking up on Harry from behind. Her heart pounded as she realized what was about to happen. Without thinking, she grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and ran toward them. With all her strength, she struck the gang member, saving Harry just in time. Harry turned to her, his face filled with a mix of shock and pride. "Nice timing," he said with a small grin before jumping back into the fight. Daniela's hands trembled, but she stood taller, knowing she had made a difference. As the fight neared its end, Henry cornered Vic, pinning him against a wall. "Why did you come after us? What do you want with our family?" Henry demanded. Vic laughed, blood dripping from his mouth. "You think your father was some kind of hero?" He spat. He wasn't. He was betrayed by his own people. Someone in the Navy framed him. He wasn't just killed. He was silenced. The words hit Henry like a punch. He glanced at Harry, who was frozen in shock. Their father's death hadn't been an accident. It had been a betrayal from within. Vic's revelation raised more questions than answers, but there was no time to dwell on it. With Vic subdued and the gang defeated, the siblings emerged from the warehouse together. Daniela felt a wave of relief as they stepped into the cool night air. For the first time, she wasn't scared. Back at their apartment, the three of them sat together, exhausted but united. Daniela looked at her brothers, her anger at their years of absence fading. "I understand now," she said softly. "You were protecting me. Thank you." Henry put a hand on her shoulder. "We're here now, and we're not going anywhere," he promised. In the days that followed, Daniela began working on a tribute to her family. On the wall of a community center, she painted her father's face, surrounded by symbols of hope and resilience. She included herself, Henry, and Harry, standing together as a family. As she finished the final strokes, Henry and Harry stood beside her, admiring the work. "It's beautiful," Harry said. Daniela smiled, feeling a sense of peace she had never known. Her life would never be the same. There were still unanswered questions about her father's death and the betrayal that had shattered their family. But for the first time, Daniela felt truly safe, knowing her brothers would always have her back. Together, they were ready to face whatever came next. If you enjoyed this suspenseful and emotional story, make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with more amazing content. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss a story. And if you love this one, Smash that like button to show your support. Thank you for being a part of our incredible community. Your support keeps us going.